Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast with your hosts, Betsy Westhafer and Tony Bodoh. Join Betsy and Tony as they dive in with highly successful C-suite leaders who have grown successful organizations by creating a laser focus on listening to their customers and building deep customer relationships. Now, it's time to join Betsy and Tony for the Really Know Your Customer show.
Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast. I'm Tony Bodoh here with Betsy Westhafer, and today we have Matthew Evetts all the way from New Zealand. And Matthew has really had some interesting conversation with us as we did our prep call, and I think this is going to be interesting to you because Betsy and I talk so often about building a formalized structure for customer feedback. Betsy works with the client advisory boards. I'm helping build the more consumer-facing feedback forms. But Matthew's got a whole different approach in his company, and it's based on relationships. So I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. And so I'm so excited to have him as a guest because I think he's going to bring a different perspective. And really, I believe it's because of the culture that not just his company, but also the culture of where he lives and how they do business there. Betsy, what's your take on it?
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited for this interview. I've known Matthew for a little over a year now and had the great pleasure of having him visit Dayton, Ohio, where I am. And we got to spend a lot of time together and just kind of share some cultural differences. And it was very, very fun. And so I'm really looking forward to diving into how things are done in his part of the world and with his type of company. And it is a different spin on what we generally talk about. So I think it'll be a very exciting conversation. So Matthew,
I think this officially,
sorry.
I was going to say, I think this officially makes us an international podcast now.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. No, super excited. Matthew, great to see you. Great to have you here. Welcome.
It's great chatting with you guys.
Yeah. So for our audience, a little bit about Matthew, and then Matthew, I'd love for you to tell us more about your background. But Matthew's the Group CTO for Optic Security Group and also the GM for Optical Digital. So wearing two different hats, big hats. And, he lives in Wellington, New Zealand with his wife and 3 children. And he just thrives on working with organizations to solve business and technology problems. So Matthew, we'd love for you to just jump in and tell us a little bit more about your background, how you ended up where you are now, and then we will dive into the conversation.
Yeah, sure thing. So I've had quite a varied background. I haven't always been purely in the technology space. So I've worked a lot in the business space as well, but always had a really keen interest in technology and mainly self-taught in that area actually. So I've been dabbling in tech, if not working in it full time, for over 20 years now. And also have a real interest in organizations and how they tick and how they're managed and led. And so that's been kind of a common thread throughout my career as well. I've always worked in New Zealand, but I have worked in Auckland for several years, which is our biggest city in New Zealand. And for the last 10 years, I've been based in Wellington, which is New Zealand's capital.
Great. Well, we are really happy to have you here. Tony, over to you.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting because I enjoy talking with people who have different ways of doing things. And as I said, as we kick this off, Betsy and I really tell people to build this formalized structure. And one of the things that stood out to me as we talked earlier was that your company has this culture that you don't necessarily have a formalized feedback process. And so tell us a little bit about that and what your process is, even though it's informal, and also why you think it's that way, like kind of how it's emerged.
Yeah, I think the company grew up in Wellington, and one of the, I suppose, interesting aspects of doing business in Wellington is that the central business district is very compact, and that's actually driven by the geography of this whole kind of cityscape in the region. It's essentially a region that's been born out of a series of earthquakes over the last few hundred years. It's very steep and hilly, and the CBD is essentially built on the foreshore in quite a compact area. It's not an overly big city. It's got about the same population as Dayton, Ohio, where Betsy is. But in terms of where we work, it's quite compact, and we actually walk to and fro between most of our customers. So we don't actually have to jump in the car much once you're in the CBD. you can work very closely with your customers, and you can meet them face to face. Ironic at the current time because we're all locked inside our houses for obvious reasons. But in the most part, we actually do just walk down the street and we have coffee with our customers, or we grab a beer after work. And it is a very relational kind of city. And as I said, the company grew up here. We do have a whole team up in Auckland as well. And then we have teams in other cities now across New Zealand and Australia as part of the Optic Security Group. But I think that that relational way of working, to a large degree, was born out of just how Wellington works as a city. We call it a big village, and it's interesting because you can talk to someone else about a particular IT discipline maybe, and you can say, hey, do you know so and so? And there's probably a 50-50 chance that they'll say yes, which is pretty crazy when you consider there's thousands of people working in the industry. And so certainly that is an aspect of it. I think there is generally a culture in New Zealand as well where those trust relationships are very important. And so for those of us who grew up in New Zealand, we're kind of really familiar with that, and that requirement to, I suppose, a handshake is important. We still have written agreements, but that real importance of stumping up, being the face in front of your product, your company, whatever it might be, and having those relationships.
So your team gets really involved from the perspective of you got these teams that go in and you make a good fit with the client, as I understand it from our conversation, and that comes back to what we talk about is really knowing your customer. You've got to know the right personalities, I would imagine, that are going to fit. So having that relationship and knowing who you're working with, or at least having someone on the team that knows who you're working with, and then kind of building the team out from there. So take us down that path a little bit, because you do support in the IT world as well. Like you bring in supplemental team members for your clients several times, right?
Yeah, we do. So obviously we have kind of an account level relationship with our customers, and that can be with various people within our team, or even a mixture of people. But then there's I suppose a deeper operational relationship where we're actually working with our customers on a day-to-day basis. And often that's because one of our team will be on the ground with that customer, either providing additional capacity, expertise in a particular area, so to speak, or helping them out on a particular project. And usually that's for several months at a time. And so that fit with both the customer, but also the team that person's going to join within the customer is super important. And that's actually that ability to identify that fit and get that fit right from the beginning, both from a personality, culture perspective, and a skills perspective, is a key differentiator for us as a business as well.
Matthew, I'm interested to know, with this culture, this relational culture you have, not just within your company, but within the area where you live and do business, how do you communicate that, or do you even have to, with the people that work for you? How do you incorporate that into the DNA of your company?
Yeah, that's a big subject. I mean, we definitely have to. I think prioritizing relationship and connection doesn't come naturally to everybody, and we shouldn't expect it to. And the a vast majority of our day-to-day business does kind of rest very heavily on the relationships that we build with our customers, and so it's important that we do develop that within our organization. And so we actually do talk about it quite a lot. And so the kind of things that I will talk about with the team, and then my managers will talk about with the wider team as well, it's just all those real relationship basics, like picking up the phone with a smile and making sure, you connect with a person. It's not just a transaction. Hello, it's Matthew here. How's your day? That genuine care around the customer. And so we do have a lot of discussions about that, and also just discussions about, hey, how are we doing with connecting with such and such a customer, or with that person within the customer? How long has it been since we called them, or how long has it been since we connected with their team, or the project team that is working within that customer? And so we're having those discussions on a daily basis. I suppose almost taking the pulse on how well we're doing and actually building and maintaining the relationships that we've got with our customers.
So piggybacking on top of that, with everything that's going on as we record this, with the massive transformation that's happening in our worlds right now related to the coronavirus, how is that changing how you engage with your customers?
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. I think it was quite telling in terms of the way we do business. When we realized that we were going to need to work from home, even before the official government announcement was made, we were already talking about, okay, how are we going to connect? And that, I'm sure there was lots of operational discussions that we could have had about how we're going to get the work done, and certainly those discussions have happened. But the first discussions that happened were how we're going to connect, and also how we're going to support our customers to continue to connect, not just with us, but with their staff and with their customers. Is there something that we can do for them to help them connect? And so, for instance, one of the first things we did is we almost filled our calendars with lots of Microsoft Teams video meetings. And so my EA went through my entire calendar the day that we decided to work from home and converted every meeting I had to a Teams meeting. So we didn't actually cancel any meetings. We just changed them all to video meetings. So we really wanted to keep that connection alive however we could. And in fact, one of the particularly interesting things I've found over the last couple of weeks is that in some respects, my workload has gone up because I've needed to make a lot more of an effort to connect with the people on my team and also with my customers. And so my calendar is even more full than normal, and I have to kind of find other ways to fit real work in. Of course, it's all real work, but the stuff that has to be done on a piece of paper, so to speak. And so we've had to be more deliberate about it, but in many respects we're doing the same thing, but doing it virtually. It just happens that it's not happening at the the cafeteria, as you would say. We'll call it the kitchen table. It's not happening at the water cooler. It's happening more deliberately because it's happening virtually.
What do you see as the best thing that will come out of this situation because of that? Where do you see this going for your company and the good changes that are coming out of it?
I think it's really proved to everyone that you can do business really well regardless of what's happening around you. And I think it's proved that you can, if you take the right steps, you can actually do even better when all the evidence should show that you're doing worse. And the reason I say that is because right now, we could be letting our productivity slip, and we could be, delaying jobs and things like that. But the reality is that, we've got the tools that we need. And if we've got the tools that we need, then the only missing ingredient potentially is the attitude and the headspace to just get on with it. And so one of the great outcomes is it's shown to everyone, well, actually, it doesn't matter if, one of our senior people is away or has to work from home, or, something comes up. If we all pull together as a team and actually just increase our level of communication, we can make things happen anyway.
Nice.
So Matthew, I was talking with a tech CEO I guess it was about a week and a half ago, and he brought up the conversation, something that you just mentioned, and you talked about around the kitchen table. He said, how do I keep that conversation going around the water cooler? And, I know that I know this guy. I've worked with him for a couple of years now, and he's the type of CEO that gets out there, walks through the cubes, pokes his head over, chats with people, and his developers are doing the same thing. They're kind of like, let's go get a cup of coffee and chat for a while. So how do you keep that going in this, remote working environment from your side there?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because I think it is hard, because when you've got a culture where you have that kind of ongoing teamwork and collaboration, and then suddenly you're all at home, it is a very stark difference. And we certainly had that culture where we have a completely open plan office. So myself and everyone else is on one open plan floor. There's no cubicles. Anyone can kind of stand up and say, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And that's exactly what happens, which is not for everyone, but it does mean that you kind of eat in each other's space all the time. We've got innumerable coffee shops within a stone's throw away, so you can pop out to a coffee shop at any time. And so that kind of collaboration was very much encouraged. I encourage it. It was absolutely built into our culture. And so we've had to be very deliberate about replacing that. So one of those video chats that we set up right from day one is an 8:30 all hands call, which I host first thing in the morning. And it's really just saying, hey, this is what's going on today, team. It's kind of fun. Like we've just finished a press-up challenge for the whole team. We're just about to start a sit-up challenge. We had drinks on Friday night, and we had a music quiz as part of that. So those kind of catch-ups are a little bit operations and a little bit fun. And then directly after that catch-up, each team within the business also has another video catch-up. And in those catch-ups, we're really trying to get people focused on talking about, okay, this is the work I'm doing today. These are the roadblocks I've got. Really getting them to try and continue to collaborate, even though they're not sitting next to each other, so to speak. So we've been deliberate from that perspective. And I think the other thing that I'm kind of reminding the team about all the time is, hey, make sure that you are getting onto the video chat or picking up the phone, as opposed to writing an email. So I'm actually actively discouraging people to write emails, which in a tech company sounds ridiculous, I know. And we have an intercompany chat too, so there's people on the chat all the time and posting animated GIFs and all that kind of thing. But I'm really saying, look, instead of writing it in words, get on the video chat. And so potentially there's a little bit of productivity loss there, but I think the gains that we get in continuing to get team members to connect, so far outweigh that.
One of the things that I've been hearing about recently on a couple of calls I've been on is people are starting to deliver like sales proposals or reply to emails with a video. So they just embed the video into the email. So it's still kind of the business as usual via email, but it's a whole lot more personal touch. So I think that's kind of an interesting perspective from some creative people doing it that way. Let's talk a little bit about your customers. What are you hearing from them right now? And how are you engaging with them differently than you normally would?
We're engaging them via video in the most part. So there's still, a few phone calls and emails and things like that, but certainly we're trying to get on the videos. And we've actually been working with our customers to set up the same kind of calls that we have within our team. And so getting on a scheduled call maybe once a week with a customer's team or with a key contact within that customer, and just having some connection, how are things going? You guys coping okay? What's happening in your world? Are the kids driving you crazy because you're trying to work from home? All that kind of thing. And then B, just making sure that we still understand what's going on in their business and that they're getting what they need from us. And so that's definitely been a shift. I don't think we would have connected with some of those customers quite as much in the past. We might have caught up with them every couple of weeks or once a month. And so we've tried to increase the level of connection where we can, and tried to make that by video wherever possible as well. And I think the importance of us understanding where our customers are at has certainly increased. So that's been a bigger focus for us now. What exactly, really trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of exactly what's happening in their world. So, if they don't need our help, great. Let's make sure that we understand that they definitely don't need our help. If they do, okay, how can we help? What's the timeline for that? And so a great example of that that we had just yesterday was that one of our customer relationship team members gave one of his customers a call. It was just a connection point, said, hey, how are you going? And they were like, actually, we've just been asked to provide 2 on-site field engineers. They're going into emergency response unit to provide IT support within this kind of closed environment. is that something you can help us with? And we were like, absolutely. This morning, the first one of those engineers started. And so it was just a great example of why, getting those connection points going is just so valuable.
Wow. That's such important work, at a time like this. It's very, very important, meaningful work.
Absolutely.
So when we talked, and I'm hearing it come out again in this conversation, you told us that one of the differentiators with your company is that relationship building. And I find it so fascinating because as we kick this off, you don't have a process necessarily from the traditional perspective of surveys and all of this going on, but you've got this daily or at least weekly connection. So you've got that so well developed in that culture there. It sounds like that it's like there's no boundary, no barriers. I mean, even the conversation, and Betsy and I've talked to several other people now on the podcast, and it's very much the same thing. It's like, get to know who they are as people, have those conversations about the kids and what's going on in life. And it's funny because the more we talk to CEOs who are very successful, to leaders that are very successful in their businesses, that's what we see again and again. It's about this person-to-person relationship. And it's not so much about business to business. The business gets handled, but it's really about caring about that person and really knowing that person first.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I think, people respect genuine empathy. And, we don't need to have a deep personal relationship with every one of our customers, but we need to be open to where they're at. If they're having a tough time at work, then we need to know about that. We need to know that things aren't so good. And if we can support them, great. If we can't, and we're just a sounding board at the time, then that's fine as well. And I suppose we want to position ourselves so that the customer can have whatever relationship they want to have with us, so it's not us kind of pushing it. It's like, but they need to feel comfortable that we're a trusted partner for them. And, we need as an organization, we need to create an environment where that level of comfort is there, and that level of trust is always increasing, over a period of time. So certainly that personal touch is important. And, it's not going to happen in every case, but we're always open to it in every case. And regardless of whether we can, I suppose, inject that personal touch into a customer relationship, we still want to be that trusted partner. We still want to be an organization that they feel that, they can turn to. And so whatever we can do to encourage that is something that's going to be high on our priority list.
How does that affect your innovation process and thought leadership? I mean, if you've got these regular connections with a lot of your clients, what does that do for you there? How do you handle that process of innovation, thought leadership, development of new services and such?
Yeah, I think, we probably go about the development of new services, in much the same way as many IT companies do. Potentially one of the differences is that in a lot of our proposition material, our marketing material, we're going to talk about things like understanding your requirements, being a trusted partner, working with you. It's not, there are services that we do that are relatively transactional, but they're probably in the minority. And it's things like, oh, you need a new antivirus package. Okay, well, here's one, and this is how much it costs. It's that real simple stuff. But when we're actually talking about how we work with a customer, we're talking about, I suppose, it from a more of an organizational people perspective first, before we get diving down into the IT solution space. So as much as we're still innovating those services and solutions, like lots of IT companies are out there, we're trying to do that from the customer perspective. And even where those solutions might be very technical in nature, the way we present them to the customer should always be from the perspective is, okay, how can this help you? You shouldn't buy this product because it's neat and shiny. You should buy this product because we actually think it's going to help you. And in fact, we're just not going to develop a service unless we really believe it can help the customer.
Matthew, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on where your industry is going and how that will impact customer demands. And then part B of that question would be, how is your company preparing to meet those future demands of your customers?
Yeah, we could probably spend a few hours on that subject alone. I think the industry is changing so quickly. I think for us, security is a really big focus, and that's just the whole way our company is set up. And certainly we're seeing more and more demand from the wider market to have trusted security services, right through right from kind of high level organizational risk management type services through to the protection of physical premises and assets, and then obviously that whole cyber piece as well. And I think the cyber stuff is just not going away. Like, you look at the current environment around the world, where everyone is every country is having to respond in different ways. The cyber piece is actually just getting bigger, and sadly, there's some bad actors out there that are really taking advantage of the current environment. And so what we're seeing as an organization is that we have to be ready to respond to those situations even more than what we were before. And I don't think that's going to change. I think, the way, we see the market going and the world going is that that risk protection, that putting controls in place to mitigate risk within organizations is just going to become more and more important. And so for us as an organization, that also needs to become more and more important. And more of our discussions with our customers have to be about, okay, where are your risks? What risks have you identified? What help do you maybe need to identify other risks that possibly aren't at the forefront of your thinking right now? And then how can we help you mitigate those in the quickest, most affordable manner, so that you can continue to grow and be successful as a business?
Yeah, that's got to be so critical. And I know from personal experience, just since this coronavirus started, my Spotify has been hacked, my Twitter's been hacked. I mean, and I'm nobody, so yeah. I can't even imagine what organizations that have a lot to protect. I'm sure that is a massive concern for your customers.
Yeah, I think the continuing trend we see in the market, which has been going on for a long time too, is just the importance of data. And so anything data is often the most valuable asset within a firm, usually right behind staff. And so anything we can do to really A, help protect that data, and then B, help leverage that data for the betterment of that company is going to be a huge deal right now, and also for the foreseeable future. And this whole remote working from home has really just highlighted that even more so.
Matthew, thank you so much. Great stuff. Just curious, on a personal note, is there a charity, a nonprofit that you like to spend time supporting? On our show, we really like to give our guests the opportunity. Probably now more than ever, it's important to look at these community organizations that are supporting so many other people. Is there an organization that you spend your time with in your community? And if so, tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, sure. So my wife and I spend a lot of time with our local church here, and that is a big part of our lives. And at this time, they're doing a lot of community outreach, a lot more than what they would normally, and just making sure that the families out there that are not so well protected against a time like this are getting the support they need. So certainly that's that'll continue to be really important for us too, that church is well supported and that they can continue to provide the support that they are. And from the other thing that we do a lot as a couple is just support World Vision. And they're obviously a global organization. My wife and I both spent time in Tanzania in Africa, and World Vision do a huge amount of work right across Africa. And I think some of the work they do there is just absolutely critical to the health and future of those communities. So that's a big deal for us.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, well, Matthew, where can people find you?
Probably LinkedIn is the best place to find me. I do dabble in a few different social media channels, but LinkedIn is the one that's probably most up to date. So I'm just Matthew Evetts on LinkedIn. There's only about 2 of us in the world, I think, so pretty easy to find. And then the company page too. There's an Optic digital company page on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes too, so people can reach out to you. So thank you so much for being here. I think this was a great conversation, and we wish you so much good fortune in the weeks and months to come in your corner of the world. It's really kind of fascinating in a way. It's unfortunate, but it's fascinating that every person on the planet is fighting the same enemy. And so we definitely are on your side for what you're going through in your part of the world, and wish you well. And I'm sure it will continue to be a very busy time for you and your team.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate your time too. And it's it's great to chat and talk through some of these really important subjects.
Yeah, well, stay well, Matthew. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Wow, I love this conversation with Matthew, because as we went through the conversation, what I really picked up on is, they don't have a formalized structure, something like you or I might promote to our clients, but they have this discipline and this, he kept using the word deliberate. They have this deliberate approach to it where, as of right now, they're doing the daily calls, but that's not just something they do during the corona crisis, right? He told us off camera that they do this all the time. This is their regular form of communication. They've just up-leveled it to some extent here. So I think it's fascinating, because to me, that really shows that when you have really good relationships, that's how you not only build them, but that's how you maintain them through this, times that are challenging like we're in right now. In addition, it also shows how different cultures, different areas, like if you're doing business locally as opposed to nationally or internationally, you might be able to have a different approach to things because the relationships you build are in that local area. And so I think that was really important for us to pull that out, because it's not the traditional way you or I would probably tell someone to do it.
Yeah, exactly, Tony. And what's fascinating to me is it really is woven into the fabric of who they are as a company, and they're living our concept of what we talk about all the time, which is unfiltered listening.
Yeah.
And they're living that day to day, and that's, to me, that's the epitome of customer centricity. We hear that phrase all the time, and lots of different definitions and perspectives of what that means. But when you are constantly working on the relationship with your customers, that to me is the gold star for customer centricity.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about unfiltered listening, because Matthew's right there in that first meeting of the day, leading it. He's hosting that meeting. So, he's getting it from everyone, exactly what's going on. He's hearing it. And then they go off to their team meeting. So it's such a powerful way to set it up that, it's definitely something we have to profile in our next book. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing that strikes me about that is it comes from the top. It has to come from the leadership, and they have to walk the talk. And it's clear that Matthew does. And I'm sure that is why they're so successful in their company and getting their team members to feel the same way about the customers.
Absolutely. So here, listener, if you're paying attention to this and really picking up on what we're putting out there today, think about your own company and think about the ways in which you might have formal processes, or as Matthew said, you have a deliberate approach to something, and really write that down so you understand it, so you know it, and make sure that you can pass that on within your culture very deliberately.
Absolutely, Tony. And thank you for that. And thank you, listener, for being here for another episode of the Really Know Your Customer podcast. And we hope to see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Really Know Your Customer. We hope you gained a lot of value from being here today. If you want to learn more about the work Betsy and Tony do to help their clients thrive, visit Betsy at thecongruitygroup.com and Tony at tonybodoh.com. See you next time on the Really Know Your Customer show.